Good evening and welcome to Crypto Pulse Weekly. This is the first edition for the second quarter, and we're adjusting the time to 7 p.m. GMT because of daylight saving. So it will be 7 p.m. from now till most likely October, and then we'll decide whether we're going to move back to the previous times. But for now, we will be sticking with 7 p.m. GMT. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Crypto Pulse Weekly. I'm your daily host, Dr. Demi, here to explore what's happening in the world of crypto and basically help you make sense of it all. So let's get started. Today, it's going to be very light and quick because I reckon we're on public holiday. It's Good Friday, so it's a time of reflection and inflection on the death of our Lord Jesus Christ. So I'm not going to take your time too much today. I'm just going to run quickly through some of the interesting stuff I find on the news this week and how we can make the best of it. So let's get started. So usually we run through our agenda, which is market updates, news of what's going on with cryptos across the markets. Then we'll talk about what I call the crypto vitals, which are like fundamental and technical analysis. And then we'll talk about the crypto drip, which is a knowledge sharing session. And then we'll take questions and answers. And that's basically it. So as I said, it's going to be a very snappy one today because, yes, I reckon today is public holiday and it's Good Friday. So let's get started on market updates. Very interesting stuff for the market today. If you are a Bitcoin watcher, you would notice that Bitcoin has tried to break 60K once again today. And like I did say to a number of people over the course of the week, because we have 4 days of public holiday, it means that the large retail investors are, for the most part, going to be in control of the market till Tuesday morning. And what that means in the bull run is the market is just going to keep going up. But we're in a peculiar situation in which we're having a reduction in what we call Bitcoin dominance. And that is pouring on what's the time in the crypto world, altcoin season. I'll explain that in a bit. So we have a situation where the price of Bitcoin is rearing to, breakouts. It's been sitting within range for weeks now, between 50 and 60K. And it's looking like it's going to break out. But at the same time, we're seeing via various other metrics that the dominance of Bitcoin is also reducing in the overall market capitalization of the cryptocurrency. So it's like a very good setup for altcoins, honestly, for the month of April. I think at least for the first 3 weeks from next week, I think we're likely to see a very huge boom in the market capitalization of altcoins. So that's likely to play out over the course of the next 2 weeks. Then in terms of regulation, we did see the government of Thailand trying to roll out their what we call government-backed digital currencies. They're trying to roll out for 2022. What that means is that if they succeed, every government, both Western and Eastern, that meaning both American and Asian, will subsequently try to implement the same. And before you know it, we'll probably say goodbye to paper money for forever. And I also read that Japan is trying to implement what you call the FATF travel rule for crypto industry. So it's a set of regulation that they're trying to put in place to ensure that money laundering is not happening through cryptocurrencies. But like I will always tell you, it's funny because many of the things that the government try to do, they're almost usually like 4 years or in some cases 5 years behind the curve. In terms of innovation and in terms of what's actually happening at the depths of the cryptocurrency space. So many of these regulations that are coming in now are off the back of the lessons learned from 2017. So all the things happening now, you probably be seeing regulations around about them in the next 3 to 4 years. So it's just, I mean, it's just a natural play out of how technology is way ahead of governments in terms of how governments relate to technology and how they try to regulate it, especially when it comes to financial instruments like cryptocurrencies. So yeah, I think that will be very interesting one to see how the government tries to tackle that for the Asian countries. And in terms of sentiments, we're in all season, as we usually say, because April is normally very bullish for for cryptocurrencies, generally speaking. I think the last, no, wasn't last, no, I think 2017 April was like 386% on the month. This one I think is going to be a lot bigger. Someone was having a chat with me, a chat with me yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, I was saying that, but my account has not doubled now. Why are you making us feel like this thing is really going? I've said, but we'll not finish the month of April. When we finish the month of April, you can have that discussion whether your account has not doubled or not. But for everybody that took positions at the beginning of, at least at the beginning of March, even at the end of February, when we initially shared a couple of high performance coins, but most of them, some of them have already done 100%. Some are around 50%. And I think in the coming weeks, we'll see very significant gains on many of those tokens. Don't quote me. It's just it's a time-bound opportunity at the time for many of those tokens because they were like at the lowest levels for long-term indicators. So now the only other place to go is up, and everything seems to be lining up for altcoins to really skyrocket in the next 2 weeks. However, because we have this next 3 or 4 days where Bitcoin is just, oscillating in range, it might try to tamper with the prices. But it's not going to be significant because what's happening is altcoins are gaining, generally speaking, they're gaining against Bitcoin. So we'll likely have this balance of dominance till next week before the institutions take over the control of the markets. And speaking of institutions, I don't know if you've heard this news, but Goldman Sachs, you all know Goldman Sachs, big institutional bank, they're now planning to start offering Bitcoins to their wealthy customers. I mean, customers with 25 million and above portfolios, $25 million. Because, I mean, like I shared on, I think that was on, yeah, it was both on Twitter on Instagram, that in the first quarter, Bitcoin had done 102%, and every other asset class was generally ranging between 2% and 10%. So it's a no-brainer that's it's going to get everybody's attention. So the same institutions that were castigating and saying, it's not money, it's rubbish, are the same guys now that are, angling to get into the game. So yeah, they're saying it's a better inflation hedge against gold. I mean, against a better inflation hedge outside gold, and they're saying that it might be better if the price stabilizes, and they're projecting that if the price goes above 100K, that there's probability that it will stabilize better than it is now in terms of volatility. That the volatility that's largely keeping many other institutions out. I agree with them, but I mean, for in asset class that's just growing, it's a natural phenomenon. So volatility is part of the cost, and we expect the price to fluctuate largely. So yeah, they're selling Bitcoins, or they're going to be selling Bitcoins to their wealthy customers, and they're also filing for what you call the Bitcoin ETF with the US Securities Exchange. I'll talk about Bitcoin ETFs later. Same thing with JP Morgan. If you know that notorious story about JP Morgan, where the CEO said they will fire any of his traders found trading Bitcoin, and that same weekend, these traders were busy buying up Bitcoin in London. So they're now, it's no longer hidden now. They've showed their hands, so to say, we're going all in. They're planning to launch what you call a basket of stocks. So it's going to be like a basket of crypto shares that you can trade as an index, or you can buy from them as an index, and then that particular tracker will be, trading or tracking the price of shares like MicroStrategy, Square, PayPal, and all the likes. So they're trying to create a product out of it, essentially. Of course, knowing institutions, if they can make money out of it, they will always support it. So that's what they're trying to do now. They also, parroting that ideology that if Bitcoin stabilizes, more institutional interest will come in. And there is also news out that they're trying to set up a Bitcoin and cryptocurrency clearinghouse. So yeah, institutions are usually not the first to jump into the fray of anything new. But once they find out and figure out a way how to profit from it and know that they're not the first to get in, naturally, institutions will want to jump in the fray. And that's what's happening. So if you see the price of Bitcoin misbehaving, just know that there are many forces that at work. I'll talk about those forces again today, just for to bring it to our remembrance. There's a general saying that if a poor man misses the bus, even if he runs after it, the bus is not going to wait for him. But if the rich man misses the bus, they're going to bring the bus back. So usually when you see the price of Bitcoin just go down and without any explanation, know that somebody is bringing the bus back. And that's what happens with the institution. So if somebody decides that, well, we need to buy, they can just start spreading some negative news just to make some people sell off, so that they can get in at a lower price. So that's JP Morgan for you. Same thing with Fidelity. Fidelity is the biggest. It's one of the biggest actually. If you take Grayscale, take BlackRock. BlackRock's probably the biggest. Take Fidelity. Fidelity should be like top 3 or top 5 investment companies in the world, and they are also filing. They're also filing with SEC for the Bitcoin ETF. So you asked me, what's the Bitcoin ETF? Bitcoin ETF is an exchange traded fund that sort of guarantees the investors' funds should anything happen to the underlying assets. And the reason they are doing this is because in fiscally regulated countries like the United States, you can't expose institutional customers directly to Bitcoin without some form of shorting. And that shorting doesn't exist. So if you say that the institutions should just be buying Bitcoin as an investment and you're selling it directly, you'll be exposed to being fined by the SEC for breaching securities rules. So to avoid that, institutional investment companies create this exchange traded funds that is related to the underlying assets. So you can have an ETF for gold, you can have an ETF for silver, you can have for digital asset now, like Bitcoin. And the whole essence of doing that is usually that asset is tracking the price of the real assets. The ETF is tracking the price of the real assets. And in many cases, the bank or the investment company needs to buy the real asset as a security. But because it's ETF, it's just a money play. It's a circulation of fiat money in some complicated manner within the system. So it's easier for the government to control this, SEC to have oversight, and then they can always hold these institutional bankers involved if anything goes wrong. But if somebody was to buy Bitcoin, or an institution was to buy Bitcoin, Bitcoin goes to zero. You can't hold anybody to it, essentially. So that's what ETF are for. And to put this in perspective, just to further explain, there's been an attempt to get an ETF in the United States for more than 2 years now, but if not going to 3 years. It's not succeeded. The only ETFs that have succeeded so far was one that was in Caribbeans. I covered it last year. I think that was around November or October. And the one in Canada that launched in February. Now, that ETF that launched in February is the biggest ETF in the history of ETFs right now, because within 10 days, that ETF was already over $1 billion, US dollars in subscription. And even within the first 24 hours, it was already exceeding records on the launches of ETFs. So because you now have Canada through the Toronto Stock Exchange giving people exchange traded funds for Bitcoin, There are about 2 or 3 companies that have filed with Toronto Stock Exchange to open their own Bitcoin ETFs. And there are many American companies that are also using their proxy companies in the Canadian Stock Exchange to buy up those ETFs. So there is sort of some pressure on the SEC in the United States to answer the guys that have been troubling them for the ETFs. So it's inevitable. The tentative dates, based on what everybody is saying, is May. By May, we're likely to have a Bitcoin ETF in the United States. Two things will happen. Two things could happen. There could be a sudden spike of price before that time, and then once the ETF is approved, then there's a sell-off on the news, which is most likely. The other scenario is that everything stays still until the ETF comes and all the big institutional funds starts flowing into Bitcoin. So I think the earlier scenario, the former scenario, is likely to happen. Even though it might play out that happens, there's a dip, and the dip looks like the market is going to crash, then the market suddenly takes off. Like I said, it doesn't pay the institutions to buy at a premium. So they usually look for opportunities for market crashes. So there's a possibility that before May, there'll be a lot of hype that sends the price of Bitcoins to the stratosphere. And then once the ETF launches, the price crashes like mad, maybe for 50%. And then it remains there like for 4 to 8 weeks while the institutions are loading up. And then the price continues to grow. And before you know it, the price is sitting above 200 and 300K. So that's likely, that's the way I see this playing out in terms of the effects of Bitcoin price. Moving on, there's an analysis from this Coinbase IPO leak saying that Bitcoin is on the verge of breakout. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you understand trading charts technically, when the market is not moving, when they call it ranging, or when it's ranging within what you call a tight channel, meaning the price difference is not significant over a long period of time, it's usually foretelling that there is going to be a breakout. A breakout means the price is going to move strongly in either direction, up or down. So when the market is going in almost in a straight line, not in a straight line, but the price is not moving significantly up or down, the expectation is that whenever that price eventually makes up its mind to move, it's going to be a significant move. And this is true for any market, stocks, forex, commodities, everything. If you have any asset that is trading in range for a long period of time, whenever it breaks out, the breakout is going to be huge. So what this guy is saying essentially is that because Bitcoin has just been ping-ponging between 50 and 60K, that whenever it eventually decides to move, it's going to break out significantly. Well, it's anybody's guess, in my opinion, but we need to put things in context. So he's saying that in the context of their IPO, because Coinbase has an IPO in the month of May. They've been working on this IPO since last year, actually. They were going to launch in February, and then somebody came up with, I think, a lawsuit or something nasty that had to make them push the IPO forward. So now the IPO is coming up in April. The IPO is coming up in April, mid-April, like April 14 or something like that. So they are already trying to position the market in such a way that prices will be high, sky high before that time, so that they can come in and sell their IPO at the top of the market. Then, they can cash out and crash the markets. But I mean, I'm not interested in buying Coinbase IPO, because Coinbase, frankly speaking, from a purely technical standpoint, Coinbase is not the best of our trading platforms. Their platform always crashes anytime there's a huge Bitcoin price spike. So I'm not sure, okay, well, they can say, they have an advantage of being around. They've been around since 2013 or thereabouts, and they have significant volume in the US. And before now, they actually used to be one of the biggest before Binance came and just swept them off their feet. So they do have that volume, and they have institutional customers. I think that's the significant edge I think Coinbase has. They have a lot of institutional customers that they do business with, both in terms of OTC and in direct purchases. And they also do custody for other institutional customers. So yeah, a good play for people who want exposure in the crypto world without necessarily getting exposure to cryptocurrencies. A very good place. So I think the IPO will be very successful. All the stock bugs who have been hearing about crypto will probably buy. Like every other thing, they might buy and just the price keeps going up, or they might get in on the day and the price crashes after. It's anybody's guess. But yeah, I think that IPO that's happening in mid-April will have some effect on the Bitcoin price. Before then, I think Bitcoin will already be above 60K, given that we have this weekend. So usually when we have this kind of uninterrupted days where the institutions are not around and you're likely to have demand over this long weekend, you tend to see the price push higher. Not to say that it won't create the so-called CME gap, which is the gap in price between the close of business on the CME and when it opens on Tuesday. But nevertheless, the price is more than right to sit above 60K. And if you see the chart, I'll show you the chart later. You see that we're really not breaking back downward in terms of all the dips that has happened. It's almost like every time the price crashes, somebody's ready to buy. So by the time they're talking about this IPO in mid-April, definitely it's going to be above 60K, in my opinion. There was this stuff I talked about last week about Chika Tiwari and Michael Saylor. So these guys are, I would say they are my legends in their own right. So on the left, Michael Saylor is the CEO of MicroStrategy, the new Bitcoin crusader. On the right is Chika Tiwari. Is a long-term hedge fund manager I think he worked for Goldman Sachs at some point. He used to work for Lehman Brothers, yeah, and he used to work for Lehman Brothers. But he's a legendary Bitcoin analyst. He's regarded like the top Bitcoin analyst in the world. And they sort of talked about similar ideologies relating to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. And I mentioned it last week, saying that people need to start thinking differently about what Bitcoin is as a storage of value or as just a speculative asset. So right now, we're in the bull run, good speculative asset or fair speculative assets, probably altcoins are better. But on the longer term, like I put out in my tweet during the week, it's the thermodynamically superior assets. And it's not original. That statement is not original. That statement is from Michael Saylor. And because when you have a science background and you understand physics, and then you understand cycles of technology and you understand business, it gives you a perspective that very few people have. And that was what Michael Saylor's thesis was about. And what he was saying was, when you convert the energy of a particular ecosystem into another form that is more efficient, the excess energy is not lost, but is converted into value. So I know I've spoken about so many people said, but I'm going to break it down. When Amazon came and started selling books online, what they did was they've taken the energy of all the libraries in the world, compress it, and put it on their platform. Same thing with Netflix. When they came and started putting videos on demand on their platform, they're taking all the blockbusters market share and all the corner shop video rentals, put all that energy and all that value on one single platform at a lesser price with more affordability and more accessibility. And because of that, because they've literally converted that energy from one form to the other, there has to be a creation of value, because according to the law in physics, energy can never be destroyed nor created. It can only be transformed from one form to the other. So what this man is saying is, if Bitcoin takes all the value and energy that you have in the stock market, in gold, in commodities, and it converts it into something that it's so efficient that you cannot even begin to compare it with gold. So you can improve technology to increase the mining of Bitcoin. You can improve technology to increase the mining of gold. You can't transport $20 billion, or let's even say $200 million of gold from here to Nigeria, from Lagos to London, or from Lagos to New York, without incurring significant security costs that will probably be like 5 to 6% of the overall value that you want to move. Meanwhile, you can do that on a blockchain network at a fraction of the cost. Probably if you use Ethereum, it probably costs you a few hundred. If you use Bitcoin, you won't spend $100 to move millions and millions of dollars in value. So what the guys are saying is this is a lot better. And because it's a lot better for not just the wealthy, but also the institutions, it is going to eat up all the existing form of storage of value. The same way the internet has come and has eaten up all our usage of filing cabinets and folders. You know, my father was a teacher, and I know in the days of WAEC exams, he comes home with large bundles of envelopes and folders, you know, to mark and to sort out work. But all that work has now been taken over by computers. In some cases, even taken over by tablets and phones. So it's even it's even crazy that you would have thought 40 years ago or 30 years ago, nobody would have thought that all that work that people used to go to the office to do and pass paper and all that, you could do it now sitting at your home. COVID has even made it more obvious to us that many of the things we thought we were going to do in the office, we really need to do them in the office. So because of this changing technology, what these guys are saying is this is a lot more than a speculative asset. This could be something that will help you transfer value across generations to your children's children without the hassles that you have in a normal day. So on Tika's example, Tika was saying like Bitcoin is like having a plot or a block in downtown Manhattan in New York or in central London. He said if you had that block, if you got it in 1900 and the World War I came, World War II came, that even though the wars and the events that were happening in the world could have affected the price of that asset during those periods, that it did not change the fact that over every decade, that asset was gaining value. That so if you bought it in 1900, by the 1960s or 1970s, it was more than 100x in value because it is prime real estate. It's somewhere where everybody wants. And for those kind of real estate, you don't really sell them. That you will rather keep those real estate as collaterals and then borrow against them other than to sell them if you ever need to use value from those real estate. And what these guys are saying is where this is going is likely to be that you will have cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or probably Ethereum, and you will not really spend them, but you will keep them as storage of value, and then you use them as leverage to collateralize, anything you need to do in the real world. And I think it's important that we as minorities start thinking along those lines, because I think we are, of most people, the one most plagued with not being able to transfer wealth across generations. I think it's a very significant thing, and it's a very significant opportunity for people of color, especially. I think I don't want to say Africans, but I'll keep it as people of color, to be able to seize on this opportunity and know that we have an opportunity to actually build transgenerational wealth with this onset of technology. And just like Tika will say, that technology always brings about a revolution in the way things are done. That the reason knowledge became democratized and was no longer sitting with monks or people in secret cults or people in the Roman Catholic empire was because the printing press came to be. The technology of the printing press democratized knowledge such that if you wrote a book, for you to copy that book, people don't need to hand copy the book all over again. You just put it to the printing press and you can create hundreds of copies. And that literally changed the flow of knowledge upon the surface of the earth, up until when we started having typewriters and computers and the internet that even now blew up everything. So this technology as well is going to change the way we store value and the way we approach value. And I think regardless of the gains that could be made in this bull run, it's important to think on the long term and see what these guys are saying. I see what they're saying because I think about transgenerational wealth for people of color, and I usually think about it in the context of why is it that it's almost like we've lost 400 years of history of people of color, and the reason is because the colonizers, as they say, have found a way to eliminate that. This provides an opportunity to retain that, and I think about it almost every day that this is a very good opportunity to create transgenerational flow of value, not just in money, but information, culture, norms, things that ordinarily might have been difficult to retain across generations. I think this blockchain technology provides that opportunity, and I think I'll keep saying it till it sticks into everybody's mentality because I think it's something that is important for us to do. We owe it to not only this generation, but also the ones coming behind us. I'm going to move on from there. I'm beginning to sound like a preacher. I have this news about Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is an American multi-billionaire that usually trash talks Bitcoin, and he's the owner of Dallas Mavericks. And it's funny because I remember talking about this last year, and I was saying that Mark Cuban, on the one hand, was trashing Bitcoin. That same week, one of his companies, which is Dallas Maverick, were launching a platform where it will allow users to pay for tickets, game tickets with cryptocurrencies. So I tell people, like, you don't listen to many of these guys and what they say. Just look at the moves they're making, because what they are saying is usually not the same with the moves they're making. I mean, for the most part. Or I mean, people like Michael Saylor will probably say what they are doing and you mean it. But for people like this, it's almost like when the press talks to them, they just give the press a sound bite, something for them to worry about and make noise about, and they continue to make their own move. So last year, when they were doing, when they was talking about Bitcoin being useless and the government needs to regulate it, one of his companies, were actively launching a platform that allowed people to pay with cryptocurrencies for game tickets. So now the guy just opened up this past week that actually is early adopter for Ethereum, and he thinks Ethereum is the next best thing to the real currency. So, like I tell people, you should always make sure that whatever noise anybody is making, don't be perturbed. The same thing I said about Bill Gates when somebody said that, am I saying that I'm smarter than Bill Gates? I said, of course not. I'm not saying I'm smarter than Bill Gates, but what Bill Gates is saying is different from what he's doing, and it's different from what his company is doing. So whatever he's saying is irrelevant to me as long as I see that what his companies are doing, it's not in consonance with what he's saying. Because if what he's saying is different from what his company is doing, then it means he's just playing to the gallery. And that's the same thing that's happening for many of these guys. So they come and say all sorts of rubbish, like this JP Morgan guy said back in 2017. And I mean, meanwhile, his boys were actively loading up on Bitcoin when people were selling off in panic. So this guy been going around bashing Bitcoin anyhow. Meanwhile, he's a big Ethereum whale. So whatever you do, please understand that this is the long game. And it's a marathon. It's worse than a marathon. It's a lifetime. Let me put it that way. So you can get in and say, I want to make some speculative gains. Yeah, make some speculative gains and move on. But know that the long term play. And in the next 4 years, maybe Bitcoin will be millions by then. This same cycle of good and bad information will come around again. So people will say, now the institutions are in it, it's no longer a good form of investment. It's overflooded, blah, 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 blah. Then you see the price continue to go up and the price continue to go up. What I know for sure is by the time, so currently cryptocurrencies are sitting on the brink of 2 trillion. Think about it. Cryptocurrencies hit 1 trillion just about less than 6 weeks ago, as I'm talking to you, we're on the verge of hitting 2 trillion. We're 1.9 trillion as of today. So there is no stopping 5 trillion this year, because I mean we're just entering Q2 and we're already at 2 trillion. We were saying before that okay, maybe we'll get to 2 trillion by the end of the year, but we're already at 2 trillion in Q2, beginning of Q2. So it tells me that whatever is being said or whatever information is being filed in the press is different from what's happening. And so we need to keep our eyes peeled for what the companies are doing versus what they're actually saying. Another interesting news that that caught my attention was George Soros. If you're familiar with online George Soros conspiracies, you know who George Soros is. George Soros is the legendary hedge fund manager and investor that, quote and unquote, broke the Bank of England. That's the way they say that he broke the Bank of England. And basically what he did there was the whole market was betting that the Bank of England was going to increase, was betting that the Bank of England was going to short the rates. So it was a trader in London, and everybody was trading in the opposite direction. It was the only one trading in that direction. And it was trading, in very huge volumes. And come that particular day, Bank of England had no option than to cut the interest rates. He became a billionaire instantly. That was in the 90s, as I understand. So they usually credit him as the man that broke the Bank of England, because he became a billionaire from those transactions that he did back then. But he's been a billionaire for a long time. Since the 90s. So billionaire in pounds, by the way. And it's been involved in so many things. And the usual conspiracy about him usually is that they say he's involved in what do you say now? That he's involved in the politics of so many countries. But it's natural. If somebody, so he's an Hungarian-born Jew who migrated to the United States, and then he schooled in London. So he's been around, and he's 90 years old now. So when people want to talk, they say, "Oh, it's George Soros and his friends that they're the one causing trouble." But if somebody is that influential as that, well, it's natural that there'll be a lot of stories going around about him. But what caught my attention, particularly in this one, not to deviate, is that his investment companies are starting to buy up exchanges. They're buying up crypto asset management. They're buying up crypto custodian companies. They're buying up tax supporting software. They're basically buying up any form of crypto infrastructure they can lay their hands on. These are, I don't know what. These are what the Yoruba people call the godfathers of investment. If you take on one side, if you take Warren Buffett, then you can take George Soros, because George Soros is like a shorter term Warren Buffett. Let me use that word for lack of a better comparison. They're probably in the same age bracket, but he's like a shorter term Warren Buffett. So he's a legendary investor as well. And if his companies are beginning to buy up Bitcoin infrastructure, tells me that they are seeing something that other people are not seeing, which is what we'll be talking about. Moving on, Ethereum finally broke 2K today for all the Ethereum holders. Congratulations. The Black Swan event that we've been talking about that was supposed to happen on 1st of April. Apparently, it looks like it's an April Fool event because it never happened. So for benefit of those who didn't know about it, there was this news going around that some disgruntled developers with the Ethereum blockchain were going to cross 50% hack. What do you call a 50% hack? It's like you try to replicate the network and derail the transactions coming into the new transactions coming into the network into the decoy. It's called a 50% hack, meaning that you take control of all the transactions that happened so far, clone them, then point every new transaction into your own network as opposed to the original network. Basically, it destroys the existing network. But they were saying they were going to do it, and they were going to do it under the cover of research. And so everybody was afraid. And you could see that the price of Ethereum literally struggled through the month of March until, yesterday came and went and nothing happened. And all of a sudden, Ethereum is 2K. So yeah, happy days for Ethereum. The launch of the Ethereum 2.0 upgrade is still in July. So I think this also will probably help with the alt season, because now Ethereum is doing better than Bitcoin, technically speaking, or it's beginning to gain ground. Another important news to start off Chainlink, if you watch the price of Chainlink as well, you see that Chainlink has moved up rapidly in the last last 24 hours, really, 24, 48 hours. And that's because they just released an upgrade, a substrate module on their blockchain that allows them to deploy solutions for Cardano blockchain. Polkadot blockchain. So for the benefit of those who don't understand what Chainlink is a cryptocurrency that functions like an oracle. You know what an oracle is? An oracle tells you what you don't know. But in technology terms, an oracle is like an information messenger that gets you information from outside your domain, which is very close to real life meaning of oracle. But they function like not only as APIs or like middlewares, they also function as the application fetching the information from outside the domain that you are. Because blockchains are closed-looped entities, meaning they are a loop of computers that are connecting with themselves. So it's only the computers that are sitting on those blockchain that have the information of the blockchain. So for the blockchain to get additional information that it needs an Oracle service, which is what you have in the likes of Chainlink, that fetches information from maybe the World Wide Web or another application server outside the blockchain and make that available for the blockchain for the purpose of propagating maybe smart contracts in the case of Ethereum, and now in the case of Polkadot. This tells me two things. Chainlink is going to make a lot of gains in terms of price this month, and same thing for Polkadot. So keep an eye on that. Then lastly, talking about altcoin season. I think altcoin season has started. I'll prove it to you in the next 3 slides. I think altcoin season has started. We started to see a number of altcoins beginning to do 50% in 1 week, 100% in 1 week, 20% in 1 day. And we're starting to see Bitcoin dominance starting to fall. I will show you that on the technical analysis chart as well. So I think altcoin season is in play. If you're interested, you should consider buying DeFi and the NFT plays that we mentioned in previous sessions of Crypto Pulse Weekly. Let's go quickly to the vital signs, which is basically our assessment of the markets. So right now, we've made a gain of 200 billion in the last 1 week on the cryptocurrency markets. And out of that 200 billion, 209 of it has gone into altcoins. That automatically tells me that altcoin season is upon us. Because what it meant is that 200 billion did not sit inside Bitcoin. Because if it sat in Bitcoin, Bitcoin dominance will not be 57.5. Bitcoin dominance, by the way, was 59.8, almost 60% last week. So it's dropped down to 57.5 now. And that's why there's discrepancy in this figure. So of all the money that came in, this is a typo, this is supposed to be 1.93. This 1.71 trillion was last week's value. This is supposed to be 1.93 trillion. Of all that 1.93 trillion that came, 202 additional that came in, all of it and more has now gone into altcoins. In terms of technical analysis, I will show you in a second. Let me pull up the charts. Yeah, so this is Bitcoin market cap dominance calculated by percentages. So I'm pulling up the weekly chart because the weekly chart sort of explains some of the things I'm saying. The weekly chart shows that we've started dropping basically since December last year. Dominance has been dropping. It was at 70%, almost at the end of December last year. Bitcoin dominance at 70%, which meant 70% of the funds that was sitting in the cryptocurrency market was in Bitcoin. Now, as of today, we are here, 59. So now we're 59.14. So we're still dropping. If we close, we're going to close this week most likely this way. From a technical standpoint, the only thing stopping this from going lower is the fact that you might have some area of resistance around 57 itself. If it doesn't hold at 57%, then we might see the dominance drop to levels like 49. If it drops to levels like 49, that would be like 2017, 2018 altcoin season, where the Bitcoin season was over and the altcoins were pumping like mad. It was between December 2017 and January 2018. So the expectation is, because it's not, technically speaking, this is bearish for Bitcoin dominance, meaning the price is coming down. So it's inevitable that alts will have an upper hand, at least for this month. I think the alts are in for some significant boost. In terms of our indices on fear and greed, we can see that we're gently pulling to the right again. 3 weeks ago, we were extreme greed. 4 weeks ago, we were at extreme greed. 2 weeks ago, we were at greed. Last week, we were at neutral. And I was saying that neutral is always a good place to buy. You can see we're back to greed now, which is 74. So if you bought last week, which was at neutral, you could have sold up at 60K for profit, for instance, if you're buying Bitcoin, because neutral is always a good place. Neutral and fear is always a good place to buy on this indicator. It's like I don't want to say it like magic. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that anytime you see the fear and greed index comes to fear, just buy, because it's not going to stay there forever. It's almost always going to flip back. So yeah, and the same thing shows up for the technical analysis as well. So now, last week we were seeing intraday of neutral, which was reflected in that sentiment we saw on the last slide. And you can see now it's a buy. So we're going to probably see this buy for a while until the next major correction happens. So somebody asked me last week, was now are we now in euphoria? And I said no. I think we've slid back from thrill to belief. That it looks like trail was very slippery, climbing this slope, and that we couldn't sustain the slope, so we had to slide back to belief. For people who are new to this, I always show this market psychology to explain to people where we are in the markets. You see, context is everything, and I tell my children as well that context is everything. Now, if you don't know where you come from and you don't know who you belong to, you tend to be lost, and then you can't position yourself. It happens for everything. So if you get a new job and you don't know what the organizational strategy is, even if you know your role, if you don't know what the organizational strategy is, you will be functioning out of context because you do not have the organizational context. And even if you have the organizational context and they give you what the strategy for the organizational is or the organization is, if you don't understand your environmental context, so if it's, let's say it's in another country, they moved into another country, if you don't understand the context of that environment, there will be so many things that will be lost to you. So in the same way, if you're getting into any form of investment, you need to know where in the cycle you are, because if you don't know where in the cycle you are, you can be loading up when the market is at the tip, and then all of a sudden your bag is full, and then the prices are crashing, and it looks like, oh, this is a Ponzi. But what happened was, you were out of context. So this what the cheat sheet cycle document always explains, where as long as you can locate where you are, you know what to do. I mean, if I tell you that we're in euphoria, then it goes without saying that you should start selling your bags unless you want to keep them for the long term. But if we are here, I mean, you know that you still have a long way to go. But right now, we're strongly back in belief. I think we're going to climb back to 3 once people start seeing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10x on their accounts. And then the shoemaker and the Uber driver and everybody will be talking about how you can make a lot of money on Bitcoin. And then the market is going to crash. But right now, we're still here. We're still here. We'll climb quickly back to 3, but we're still here right now because the market has refused to give us that euphoria yet. So that's where we are. It's important to keep that in mind. Like I told you last week, I think we'll get to euphoria very quickly. We might not stay there long because many people now are aware of how the market corrects sharply during this bull run. So once people start to see any sign of weakness, everybody just starts to sell off, and then you can see an 80% or 60% plunge. But like Jesus said, do not be troubled when you see these things. Just know that the end is near. So, in terms of crypto, which is our knowledge sharing, I'm open to any questions, but I just wanted to rehash what I said last week about things that generally affect the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Of course, Bitcoins, then other cryptos. Whatever affects Bitcoin is likely to affect other cryptocurrencies. So the halving, retail investors, institutional demands, option expiries, and derivatives and indices are the things that affect this market. So I think what I will do is from next week, I will talk about this. I'll talk about this as individual points. So instead of talking about all of them together, I'll pick one and I will really talk about it extensively. So next week I'll talk about halving. I know a number of people probably know about halving, but most people that just joined this year probably don't know that there's anything called halving. So I'll talk about halving next week, most God willing, and then I'll talk about the other aspects of things affecting the markets from that time on, from the subsequent weeks. I think that's all I have for today. I was hoping to finish in 30 minutes, but apparently there was so much to say. So if you have any questions, I think this is a good time to let's have it. If you are on Instagram, just type in your question and I will take them. If you're on Zoom, you can just unmute your mic and we'll have a question. And your question, yeah, go ahead. Dennis iPhone.
Yeah, hi. You said April is like a bull run or like the season of, whatever it is. But what happens after April, like in May, June, July? Is this going to last till the end of the year, like October, November, or just for a period of time? I mean, just April and then sometime May. I just want to know when this season is going to kind of face the decline.
Okay. You know that the season is how do I explain it? It's like when you're at the beach, you have minor tides and you have major tides. So you have minor waves and you have major waves. The major wave, which is the real bull run, is probably going to be done and dusted by the end of the year, probably a little earlier than that. Current technical indications suggest September, October. Last year, the market dumped at the beginning of September and didn't recover until mid-October, until they started gaining again in December. But for this bull run, my predictions are that we'll probably see a major correction in, I can't be sure, but it's sometimes between the end of May and the end of July. And I'll give you my reasons for that. So before now, we didn't have the amount of institutional money that we had in Bitcoin. So the cycles were a lot more predictable because you knew that traders would generally go on summer holidays. So there will be a summer slump. And summer slump happens across all markets, by the way. There'll be a summer slump sometimes between June and July. And then the market will be sluggish until the beginning of September, and then the market will pick up again. Because you have a lot of institutional funds sitting in cryptocurrencies now, there's something called rebalancing, which I think I've explained about 3 weeks ago. And what rebalancing means is that institutional investors have a very large basket of portfolio. So they invest in all sorts of things. So if one of them is hyper performing, so let's take Bitcoin. If they invested 1% of their portfolio in Bitcoin and all their other assets are doing, like I showed you in that Instagram post, they're doing 1.2%, 0.1%, 10% in a quarter. And then Bitcoin comes and does 100%. At the end of the quarter, they need to rebalance Bitcoin because what it means is Bitcoin has exceeded their strategic allocation to that portfolio, to that asset. So their strategic allocation is 1% of the overall portfolio. Now Bitcoin has doubled on its own and has become 2%. So they need to cut off that 1% gain. Essentially, that's what they're doing. They need to take off that 1% gain, put it in the other asset that are not as performing as Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies, and then level up their own portfolio. Because one, they need to show good performance to their investors or their customers. So leveling up and rebalancing helps to improve the overall performance of their portfolio as a basket. So why have I gone into this diversion? That rebalancing means that they're going to need to sell the cryptocurrency or the Bitcoin that has doubled in price. So let's say they invested a billion and that billion has become 2 billion. They're going to sell 1 billion worth of Bitcoin at the end of that quarter to fulfill their rebalancing of the obligation as an institutional investor. So what happens is sometimes towards the end of each quarter, you see the effect of that rebalancing. We saw that with how Bitcoin dropped sharply last week. We saw that with how it dropped sharply towards the end of February as well. So because you have institutional funds now sitting in Bitcoin, you will have sharp drops, huge drops at the end of quarters, minimal drops at the end of each month, because there are also institutional investors like high frequency traders that need to bank their profits every month. So because of those factors, you will see major corrections. So I expect to see some corrections in the month of May, maybe not serious ones. I expect to see a major correction at the end of June. Because it's the end of the quarter. Then I expect a very huge, after that correction in June, I think Bitcoin will try to make a run for its biggest all-time high, or will have made it either before then or just after then. Once it makes its the biggest all-time high, which in some cases people are saying, technically speaking, I think 300,000 is in play. But some people are saying it can make a moonshot of 500K and just hit it one weekend and just come back and then start crashing. So depending on how you want to play it, you can decide to bank your profits once maybe you're 100K and you feel that maybe you got in at 50K, you're 100K, you made back your original investment. So you bank your original investments. Or you wait for it to get to 200K, then bank a bigger investment and then wait for it to crash. But my current projection is that Bitcoin is going to do 100K, drop it, maybe 120, drop to 70K or 60K or even 50, and go back and then do like 200 and something. Then probably try 300, then come back to like 100 and probably stay above 100 till the final push to the peak of the bull run, which may be anywhere between 350 or 320K to 560K, after which you enter a bear market. Bear market meaning everybody will sell off. So for the retail investors, because retail investors know that bear markets happen, everybody is going to sell off. In fact, I know people that have said, last time I was caught holding the bags in the last bull run in 2017. This time I'm not going to be holding the bags. I'm going to sell the top. So because everybody's going to attempt to sell the top, the market is going to crash significantly. So the strategy is, as much as possible, make sure that you bank your initial investments to a good extent. Enjoy your life with your initial investments. At least if you're already in 2-3x, it means that whatever you wanted to do with the initial investment, you can still do. But you can just keep it on the side as sniper. I call it sniper money, meaning when the price crashes abnormally, you can get into the market and get a discount. But in terms of when the bull run is over, I think the bull run will be over before the end of the year. People are saying December. I don't think it's going to wait till December for obvious reasons. Everybody knows that the bull run is coming to an end this year. So why would you wait till the end of the party if you don't want to be the one to pack the chairs? So it's inevitable that people will start selling off probably from August. That's my projection. People start selling off from August. If people start selling off from August, it means by September, market might be in a free fall already. But depending on what your strategy is, if you're in it for the long run, then you may bank your profit and wait till when the market's in a free fall. Like I said, even though the market will be in a free fall, I don't think Bitcoin will come below 100K after that time. Bitcoin is going to go above 100K before middle of the or by the middle of the year at the minimum. Once it crosses 100K, I don't think, even in the peak of the crash during this bull run, I don't think it's going to come below 100K. But altcoins will definitely flatline. I mean, most of them will lose like 80 or 90% of their value because everybody will be freaking out, not wanting to hold it back. So everybody will sell it. So it's not a tough question. It's a complicated question because there is no simple answer to say it's going to end in December, it's going to end in January, because there are just too many, constitutional factors that affect the price behavior.
Okay, thank you. And again, at what point do we realize that, okay, we are at the free fall now? Then people can start selling. Like me, I'm new in the market since like January and it's been doing very well. So I don't know that point that free fall will start and then I can start selling, whatever I have in my wallet. So are you going to give us a signal?
Are you part of our WhatsApp group?
Sorry? Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. If you're part of that WhatsApp group, you will know. Because people start talking about the profit at the bank. So definitely it's time to, pick up your bags and bank your profits. But I've given you an idea now of what it's like. So if you're holding, and this is talking generally, if you're holding Bitcoins right now, I'll suggest you buy altcoins because between now and the end of the month, at the minimum, altcoins will do 2x, will double their value against Bitcoin. So if you had 0.1 Bitcoin, which is as of today around 6K USD, if you had 0.1 Bitcoin and you bought 2 altcoins, and those 2 altcoins doubled in their value against Bitcoin during this month, and you've converted them back, what you've done essentially is you've converted your 0.1 Bitcoin to 0.2. Because when you buy Bitcoin, then you doubled your value.
And he doesn't let you watch.
I'm mostly investing in on altcoin though.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, very well than the Bitcoin. So
yeah, altcoins will always do very well than Bitcoin because they are smaller in market cap, and when they talk about they call it domino effect.
Yeah.
Or halo effect. And I usually like the example I give about ships in Apapa Wharf in Lagos. If you are trying to go from VI by boat to Takwa Bay, you are going to cross the path of major vessels carrying very huge containers, like those ones that bring in cars. Now, if those ships start moving across at the time you are going, and you are going with a speedboat and a canoe, you will notice that this canoe is more turbulent than the speedboats because the canoe has a smaller volume in terms of volume displacement. But the speedboats will bounce, but the bounce will not be as much as the canoe. So in the same way, because the speedboats has a bigger volume than the canoe, the speedboat has a smaller bounce. Because the bigger vessel, like the ferry, has a bigger volume than both the speedboat and the canoe, the bounce is lesser. Then the vessel itself, the container vessel that is the Grimaldi's of this world, that is creating the ripple, will not shake at all because it's the biggest. So in the same way, Bitcoin is the biggest. If you pump 100 billion into Bitcoin today, it doesn't do anything. It's something that's sitting around almost 2 trillion. So, but if you put 1 billion in any small coin, a small cap, you just see the price go through the roof. So the play for this month is buy altcoins, sell them once they've done more than 2x if you're comfortable, or if I tell you to do so, and then you have more Bitcoins for your value. Then when Bitcoin starts to climb upward, then you can bank the Bitcoin into fiat currency, or if you're keeping for long term. So that's the general play.
Okay. And then in January I bought Holo.
Yeah.
1.4 million units at 1,500.
Yeah.
But so today is like $40,000.
Yeah.
So when you say bank your investment, this is way above my investment. So
yeah. So
should I still stay in? Wait till that's free fall to sell, or just keep watching the markets?
No, for Holo, you've done way. That's what am I saying? That's more than 30x now.
Yes, like
so now you should buy back to Bitcoin. That's what you should do. When you buy back to Bitcoin, then look for another altcoin that you can buy and sell at the end of the month.
Okay, so sell like maybe 75% and go to Bitcoin, right?
No. Let's use this example as a case study. So you have 1K5. 1K5 in January
Mm-hmm.
was about 0. Let's
It
say
was
about
around
0.2.
0.009 or something. 0.309. Yeah, that was what I bought around that time.
Yeah.
0.0009.
No.
And
I'm
now,
even talking about the Bitcoin value.
oh, Bitcoin value. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
So the Bitcoin value will have been around 0.09 or 0.075 or something like that when
Yeah.
you bought it.
Yeah.
Now, the value of that particular token is 40K,
Yes.
meaning it is in Bitcoin value, it is is about 0.8 Bitcoins. What
Bitcoin.
I'm
Okay.
saying is, in this particular case, I will sell it back to Bitcoin first, which is 0.8.
Okay.
Then I will look for any of those altcoins that we talked about on the chat on the WhatsApp group that is yet to move,
Okay.
and I will split it across them at 0.02, 0.02 each. What I'm
Okay.
saying is, because altcoin season is definitely going to show up sometimes during the month.
Mm-hmm.
Once you deploy them to those altcoins will gain against Bitcoin. Most of them will gain anywhere between 2x to 10x. Once they gain 2x to 10x, then sell them back to Bitcoin. If you did that, if you had 0.02 and each of them did 2.5x,
Mm-hmm.
at the end, so if they did 2.5x, it means that each 0.02 is now 0.5 Bitcoin. Times 4, it means you'll have made 2 Bitcoins from 0.008 Bitcoin.
Yes.
So that's the logic.
Okay, that's
So,
true. Okay, thank you.
yeah. MK, you're asking what's the top 5 altcoins to buy right now? I don't know how to answer you because I've given so many altcoins on the WhatsApp group. I know I've talked about Kusama. Most people that bought Kusama when I said they should buy Kusama are smiling right now. I've talked about Telor. Telor and Kusama, I'm not sure they're available for US customers. Just thinking about that now. I don't think LitEntry. LitEntry, I'm not sure. I've talked about LitEntry as well. LitEntry has not really moved so much. But Strax is a good one. STRAX. Stratis is available for US customers, and I think it's available on Coinbase, Binance US, Crypto.com, and Kraken. Stratis is a good buy. It's an old coin with a lot of strong fundamentals, and it's just technically at that position where I think it's going to make a lot of gains over the next few weeks. So I mentioned Strats. I mentioned this entry is probably not available in the US. Polkadot. Polkadot is huge cap already. But even Polkadot, I don't think Polkadot is in the US as well. Cardano is also another interesting one. I used to talk about Cardano, but Cardano is an interesting one because they have some upgrades that are going to be deployed. They're already deployed now, so they're live. Those upgrades are live. So once they start launching smart contract projects, you start seeing a lot of movement on Cardano. So I think Cardano is a good buy. I think Engine is a good buy. Engine is a gaming platform it's an NFT based platform. They've been around for a while, and I mean, for the OGs that have been holding Engine since last year, Engine has done more than 10x now. But it still has a lot of upsides to grow. So Engine is a good one to buy. Theta has just risen to top 20 in recent times. It has some promise, but it's already large cap, so I'm not sure how much it's going to grow. BNB, which is Binance Coin, is already a major coin, but because it's almost like becoming a powerhouse, I think it has the potential to be like Ethereum. So, like I said 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Binance Coin, Cardano, and Polkadot, they are top contenders for Ethereum or for Ethereum's position. whatever happens this year will determine which of the three of them is going to take Ethereum's place, or whether they're going to succeed in taking Ethereum place. Because for chains like Polkadot and Cardano, they really have very heavy duty functionalities, and because they used to be part of Ethereum's development team, they know everything about Ethereum. So they might have some competitive advantage. Well, I mean, because people in North America have restrictions on which tokens they can buy, which tokens they can't buy. So the ones that I think are readily available will be Cardano. But yeah, I think there are some exchanges that, funny enough, are available to US customers, like KuCoin, but they're not US exchanges. So if you have access to KuCoin, KuCoin is KuCoin. They do have a lot of all these assets I mentioned, and a lot of new ones as well. But something to bear in mind though is because it's all season and each all season has its theme, I think NFTs will be very, very, very much at play. So NFTs like Chili's, like Engine, of course, Engine is an NFT. They will be very much attractive in this all season. So, Abake, I hope that answers your question. Let me look for Filecoin. Yeah, Filecoin is already moved seriously. I don't know. I'm not usually chasing after coins that have already pumped because it's a lot of diminishing returns. The pump the pump potential is not as significant as when it was. Yes, so yeah, I mentioned Theta, I've mentioned Chili's, I've mentioned Engineer. The Central Land is also a very good one. Actually, geez, Central Lands have moved to $1. It was just sitting at it was just sitting at 50 cents about 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Yeah, these guys are all good buys. I think they're going to do very well over the course of the month because NFT is the theme of this altcoin season, and these guys are the masters currently of NFT. Engine has been around for a long time. Chili's is a newcomer. Theta has been around for a long time as well. And because Theta already has all the circulating supply deployed, Engine has maybe like 83%. So yeah, those are the ones that I mean, I hold Theta and I hold Chili's. I don't hold any. Okay, I hold Ecomi. Ecomi is not available on most exchanges. It's inside that job, but I don't usually tell people about this kind of tokens because they're high risk tokens, and I'm not a qualified financial advisor, so I don't want anybody to sue me to court. So I will usually not talk about it. So all right, guys. I hope I've answered your questions. And I hope you have a wonderful Easter. If there are no other questions, if there are other questions, please just have it before we round up and let everybody go.
Launchpad.
Launchpad. No, that was an inside joke. He's highly coded. It's not for general consumption. Yeah. Yes, it's after the service. All right, guys, have a very lovely Easter. To the guys on Instagram, thank you. Have a wonderful Easter as well, and see you again next week. For the guys on Zoom, okay, I got a question about Siacoin. For Siacoin, we already told you about Siacoin. Why are you asking again? I already mentioned Siacoin as part of the coins that were given at the beginning of, that was probably at the beginning of February or so.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For almost 2 months now, we've talked about it.
Yes, now, if I remember,
we usually post it.
Yeah. Yes, now. It's almost 2 months I talked about Siacoin. And it's done. Am I saying?
It's done.
It's done. It's yes now. It's done. It's done. It's done more than 2x. It's doubled. More than doubled. Yeah, it's more than doubled in the last 1 month. So yeah, Siacoin is a good play. It's probably going to do 10x at this rate. So, Banjo, I hope I answered your question. We already talked about Siacoin way back. Mr. Shalao, do you have a question? Oh, okay. All right, so have a very happy holiday, everyone. See you again next week. Dr. Larry,
Thank you very
the launch party. I have one, two, I have three other people that are interested. I'll create a WhatsApp group and just explain to everybody what's up.
much.
And then we can
There's
talk.
another guy that's interested.
There's another guy that is interested. You know, the
From my
funny
end,
is from your end. Okay.
He's even the one that said I should call you. He's even the one that said I should call you.
Okay.
Mm.
I'll create a WhatsApp
Also,
group, Pali.
yeah. Let's create the WhatsApp group and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, because it's actually very competitive.
Very, very.
It's a very competitive. The launch pad, especially for poker starters, is a very competitive one because, for instance, I already met the condition, but what I'm thinking is maybe because I've not met the condition for up to a week, every time I try to get to the launch pad, it tells me that my account is not whitelisted. Meanwhile, I've whitelisted my address so many times, my ERC20 address. So I'm still holding on to say that, okay, I will hold on for another week or try any of the ideas. If it works, maybe if it works next week, then I will know that, okay, it's waiting for me to do 1 week on liquidity provision before it's allowing me to whitelist. But even the ones that I was able to get onto to get on the launch pad, I couldn't get on the pool because it kept saying that I wasn't on the whitelist. And then on the WhatsApp group, I'll give you the cost breakdown. Basically, what it might cost now that Ethereum has even gone up. That's another that's another crazy one. Yeah, but nevertheless, yeah. So I have you, I have Lukman, I have Ramat, I have La. Then you say there's somebody else. So there are like 5 people. Yeah. So no problems.
Thank you.
No problem.